Welcome to the Fantasy Football Forge. My name is Steve, and welcome to the Saturday show where we will go through the injury report, as you can see right on the screen there, and then we will go through some of the news articles, news stories that are going around that are going to be at least somewhat relevant to fantasy football, followed by the good part, the steals, the stocks, and the scraps, which is like a bold takes portion along with a stardom situm portion all wrapped in one. So thank you very much for stopping in through, and thank you to new subscribers over the past few weeks. Been very much appreciated. Let's keep on growing. I did do videos earlier this week on each of the positions, the wide receiver, running back, quarterback, and tight end, if you would like to check those out, or you can always check out my updated rankings up on the website at www.thefforge.com. There's a link down in the description as well. And you can find my final projections with me live 1 hour before kickoff on Sunday. A lot of you will not be seeing this until Sunday. So maybe I'm already live. You can come ask me any of your start-sit questions. That was rough. We're off to a great start. I'll edit that into something. Let's just get moving along because I'm having a hard time talking today. Starting off with the quarterbacks for the injury report. Kyler Murray is highly questionable. Colt McCoy was questionable. He did practice in full on Friday, which is basically like a Thursday practice report, so that's usually a pretty darn good sign. We'll make sure he practices in full again tomorrow, then he won't have any designation, I'm sure, for the game, which is a Monday night game, which causes some issues for pretty much, that whole Arizona offense. There's some questions. I think James Conner is really the only one that you're just like, going to start him either way or sit him either way, whatever. It doesn't change too much. Then Josh Allen is questionable. He's playing. That's just a tag that's on him. And Matt Stafford has been ruled as in. He has passed his concussion protocol. Now let's move on to the running backs, and J.D. McKissick yet again has been ruled out with that neck injury or those neck issues that he's having. And as far as questionable guys, Ezekiel Elliott is questionable yet again this week, and yet again Jerry Jones is touting that he's ready to go. But he did that last week too, so we'll see. No guarantees there. Then Jamal Williams was questionable. I do believe that's just an illness issue, so I think there's going to be no problem there. Jerick McKinnon has a questionable tag on him. I don't think that's much of a concern, and it does look like Gus Edwards will be playing as well, so not too bad as far as running backs go this week. Wide receivers have been gotten pretty banged up for really one team, especially Kansas City, where Juju Smith-Schuster has been ruled out, and later on we'll see about a different wide receiver there. Then Jamar Chase was ruled out this week. That was to be expected. Jerry Jeudy out, to be expected. Corey Davis out. It was looking like he might be able to play this Sunday earlier in the week, but not to be. Josh Reynolds, I have as doubtful. That's my call. I don't know what the official tag on him right now is questionable. So we'll see on Josh Reynolds. As far as questionable guys, Wan'Dale Robinson had a hamstring thing pop up early in the week, which is never a good sign. However, apparently he is trending towards playing, so that is a really good sign. Must not have been too major, just maybe a minor retweak, which that hamstring was something that he had earlier this season, so it's probably something he's going to be playing through all year. Then Devontae Adams is questionable, and that is definitely something to keep an eye on. DeAndre Hopkins is questionable, and that is another one where the Saturday report will be important and revealing. I do think he'll probably be playing, but we don't know yet, and that is a Monday game, so all the more fun. Then Isaiah McKenzie is questionable. He had an illness, so we'll see if that clears up in time for the game. Then Mike Williams is questionable. Same with Keenan Allen. Apparently both of them are looking like they're probably going to be playing this week. Have a little bit more on that in the news section. And Brandon Cooks is questionable. I haven't really seen too much concern about him not playing, but sometimes nobody's concerned about a guy not playing, and then he doesn't play. So you never know. As far as guys who have been ruled in, and we don't have to have any concern about, for now at least, unless something crazy happens at the last second, Curtis Samuel, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and DeAndre Carter are all fine to play this week. As far as the tight ends go, David Njoku said that he's going to be a go, or that he's ready to go, so that's just as far as the medical staff and his coaching staff think he's fine to go, then he'll be good to go. Mark Andrews is a game time decision. That is a 1 o'clock game, so That's good. I think that he's probably trending towards playing, but once again, far from a guarantee. And Cole Kmet is questionable, but he was also named an honorary captain for this week, so, he's probably playing, right? I'm not too concerned about that. And Logan Thomas and Gerald Everett have been ruled in, so all good there. Now let's move on to the headlines. And the big one that happened this week was all that weather happening in Buffalo, New York, around that area. Hope everybody's fine there. As far as that game, it did get moved to Detroit. So that's a dome, I believe. But whatever the case, fine for the weather, which makes it all the better for fantasy starters. And as far as the Bills go, I know today, as of Friday, there were some questions about the travel and things being difficult for them, but I would imagine that even if they can't get out Saturday night, which would be the normal routine, that they should be able to get out just fine on Sunday morning. The weather should be gone by I think in the afternoon on Saturday. I got this information from Ryan Hall, YouTuber. He's pretty darn good at this stuff, so if I'm wrong, you can blame him, but otherwise, you can thank him. And so it should basically just be out of there by Saturday night. So I would imagine they have some pull in that town, and they'll be able to get an airplane out of there Sunday morning at the very least, or late Saturday night. Then there were a few names here that have been put on the IR this week. Mecole Hardman went to the IR. Cooper Kupp gone to IR. Khalil Herbert to the IR. As far as Mecole Hardman, we know the players that are affected. They're in the rankings, and they've been on. Kadarius Toney's been on waiver wires and whatnot, so we know those names. As far as Cooper Kupp goes, one would think Allen Robinson should have better value going forward. One would think Van Jefferson might have some value going forward. I don't know for sure that it's going to be Van Jefferson, though, that necessarily replaces Cooper Kupp. I think that may be somebody else. So we'll see if a name on that roster comes out of there, but nobody stood out to me. There's a couple of interesting names, but nothing that's like, oh, that's a player that I absolutely loved. So we'll see about that. And then as far as Khalil Herbert goes, Tristan Ebner is a higher-end draft pick that they grabbed this year, who now has value at the very least for the next 4 weeks. So definitely a solid stash to have on your roster. Another injury here from last week, Dallas Goedert, who's going to be missing an extended period of time with that. And so here's a little bit of further news on that hamstring, on Hopkins' questionability. Cliff Kingsbury said that Hopkins' hamstring is a maintenance deal. It is, that they're just making sure that he's ready to go Monday night. So I think that things will be fine there. It doesn't hurt to be prepared or cautious and play somebody else, whatever the case. I'm pretty much I'm a lock for the playoffs in my league. If I'm not a lock, I think I am actually. So I'm not too concerned if I end up losing this week. I guess that I'll probably just play him. So weigh your situation to see if you want to, depending on the guys that you have on your depth chart and who's available. Sometimes it's okay to just take a risk if you can. But otherwise, it doesn't hurt to not take a risk, especially if there's somebody juicy sitting on the waiver wire. Keenan says that he feels great, 100%, that he wants to be playing this weekend and that he is ready to go. So I think he was saying that he feels that he's at 100% with his hamstring, and he's 100% ready to go mentally. So we'll see, but that is a staff call. That is the medical and the coaches who will make that final determination. And Mike Williams says that he is feeling 200%. Probably heard Keenan Allen say 100%, and who doesn't love a one-upper? Which brings us to Lamar Jackson, and there was maybe a little bit of a scare for some at least, because he was missing from practice, from the media portion of practice on Friday. It is unclear if Carson Wentz will come back to his number one quarterback role. There are some rumblings, people who think that Heineke has taken that role going forward. Like I said, he definitely earned himself one more week last week, and this is a week where it's going to be hard for him to lose it because they'll probably be running a lot. So yeah, there might be some truth to that, but he might be on a short string as well. They do have a lot invested in Carson Wentz, and they gave Heineke a try last year, but he does bring that fire to the team that Carson Wentz just does not. Then as far as Hollywood Brown goes, he could end up playing this week. That is on Monday night. I'm guessing we won't know until after the 1 o'clock games have started on Monday, because final moves will have to be made by like 3, 4 o'clock, I think, Eastern time, as far as Hollywood Brown, and they'll probably wait till like the last second to make that decision if he'll be brought up onto the roster. I think he's somebody this week that I wouldn't be overly concerned about trying to get in my lineup, just as far as the risk goes along with that. But pay attention to the news, because at any time he could be announced that he will be playing. Then Cam Jordan from on the New Orleans defense is out. That defense has had some injuries. They've struggled, so something to keep in mind. All the better for opponents going against them. Now it's on to the fun part, the steal, stock, scrap, start 'em, sit 'em type deal. Do remember, I am making bolder calls because I am going for that's just how it works. I'm looking for the guys who I have the most difference with compared to the expert consensus rankings. That's where I start from, and then I filter through from there to decide who I end up putting on here. Some weeks it's a little tough at some positions. Some weeks I'm pretty in line with the experts or something. And on tight ends, I did have a little bit of trouble coming up with 2 for all of these, but I always figure it out. And so I do have a bit of a gimme here with the first one. But before we get to that, right up here, I have a rating of my previous week's results. How did I do last week? And for these steals last week, I did amazing. I gave you 2 great options. I pretty much try to work on a bad, mixed, good scale. But I can't help myself, and I don't quite stick to that scale exactly. This week, I'm going to give you David Njoku, who I have ranked 4th, 30 spots ahead of the ECR, going up against Buffalo. It's a high-scoring game. So, I expect Cleveland to be somewhat efficient or effective on offense against Buffalo. Buffalo's had a lot of injuries. The defense is not the same as it's been, and the rushing attack is one thing that has been able to find some success against Buffalo, and that will just help Buffalo be able to do what it wants to do, which is starts with the run, and then it goes off of there in the passing attack. So I do expect there to be some opportunities for touchdowns and the likes, and so I like David Njoku a lot in a game that could have some scoring going on. Another thing to mention about this ECR is that David Njoku is not guaranteed to play, so that is a lot of the reason for that huge disparity. I don't know quite where the experts would have him ranked, however, so I assume I'm probably higher than that by at least 6 spots, if nothing else, but he would probably be in the starting territory for most experts. Now let's move on to Gerald Everett, who I've ranked 12th. The ECR on him is 21. I have him 9 spots ahead of the ECR. This is another bit of a gimme here because Gerald Everett was questionable. He was not guaranteed to play, so some people must not have had him very high in their rankings. Unranked, questionable, at the back end of their rankings, just kind of waiting to hear more on him. So as of the time that I grabbed this, he's obviously going to be trending up from that ECR of 21, but I have him at 12, going up against Kansas City. It's a good option. This was a week I was really having a hard time finding good steals. So just in case you do use the ECR to help make decisions and you have Gerald Everett and you just gave it a quick peek and you're like, oh, he's ranked so low compared to whoever else I have or something, or you want to look there and you put in a waiver claim and you see in this in time, don't worry. Gerald Everett should be a pretty solid start this week. I do expect him to be less useful if that offense is going to be at full swing with both of their wide receivers back, but still should be a fine tight end. Now let's move on to these stocks, where last week I had mixed results. I did good on one guy, I did bad with one guy. This week, we'll see if I can do better. Starting off with Taysom Hill. Now in these stocks, I'm pretty much giving you guys who I'm either in agreement with the experts on you should start him or you should sit him, or sometimes I find out that, hey, I'm in agreement with you, people who started him based on the start percentage of him on ESPN leagues compared to the experts. So those are the types of things that I'm looking for with the stocks. And as far as Taysom Hill goes, I'm in agreement with the experts here roughly, At 14, the experts, if they had Gerald Everett and David Njoku ranked, obviously would be a little bit behind me. And I really feel like this will be a week where Taysom Hill will find some success going up against that Los Angeles Rams defense. So this is really a gut call as much as anything for me. I do think that this could be one of those big weeks for Taysom Hill. Now on to Foster Moreau. I am told by the CBS guys is how it is pronounced, or at least one of the CBS crew. So, and he seems pretty adamant on it. So Foster Moreau, not Moreau, I have ranked 13th. The ECR on him is 12. It's not a great matchup here going up against Denver, but the tight end position is one spot where you can find some success against this Denver defense, and I do believe that they have had another loss on that defense in the front seven. So that defense may not be as dominant in the back half of the season as it was in the starting front of the season. We'll see. Now on to these scraps, and last week I did better than good, and this week I hope to bring you at least better than good results. Maybe I can put amazing here next week. Who knows? I'm going to give you the name Hayden Hurst here, who I've ranked 17th. The ECR on him is 11, so I have him 6 spots behind the ECR. Maybe as few as 5 or 4 spots if we were to include some of those rankings. Some of Gerald Everett and David Njoku as being ranked higher than 11th. Who knows? So going up against Pittsburgh this week, I do believe that Pittsburgh defense is going to be, closer to what it was in the first quarter of the season going forward, unless there are any more injuries going forward. But they performed better last week. I expect them to be tougher. Hayden Hurst has had a not great season so far. A couple of good things, but I will tell you this much. I do really bad with Hayden Hurst, and when I think he's going to do good and when I think he's going to do bad. So, if you want to just ignore me, go right ahead and play him. But I'm here to tell you, I got him a little bit ranked behind that. Go check out my rankings on the website to see who I have higher if you don't feel confident in him. Then as far as my other pick here, Dawson Knox, I have him ranked 19th. The ECR on him is 13, so I have him 6 spots behind the ECR going up against Cleveland. This is the first time that I've been the low guy on Dawson Knox. I just wasn't feeling it this week, but he does always have that ceiling. Cleveland is not a great matchup for tight ends from what I recall. And once again, there are just some guys who I prefer above a Dawson Knox this week. That's all it is, but I'm not absolutely uncomfortable starting these guys. There's a pretty lengthy list of tight ends this week who are fine plays. Then as far as my DFS value plays, which I did not introduce, so at the end of this video I will just run through those if you made it here but now you want to skip ahead and you are only interested in that. I give a DFS value play each week or more than one. Try to keep it to one main option that I can rate myself on. So last week I had mixed results. I did give 2 tight ends. One of them was a good pick. It might have been Cole Kmet again, so it might have been an amazing pick, and the other one was a bad pick. In the end, mixed results. This week, I'm going to give you Trey McBride. He's super cheap in a great situation. Don't know if he can take advantage of it, but if he could have some sort of Zach Ertz-like week, he'll definitely be worth the investment on FanDuel. This is based on FanDuel pricing. Now let's move on to the quarterbacks, and for these steals, I had mixed results last week. This week, I'm going to give you Jacoby Brissett, who I have ranked 16th/17th. The reason that I have some slashes on these is because of Kyler Murray, who I have ranked 12th. But the experts did not have him ranked, so I just moved him back while looking at these. So the experts also obviously would be higher on Kyler Murray if they knew that he was starting, or if we knew he was starting, more experts would be higher on him, have him ranked like he's starting. But because he isn't, I just took him out of the equation here. So I just wanted to point that out, that I do have these guys basically 1 spot ranked higher, and so do the experts probably. But as far as Jacoby Brissett goes, this is a similar thing to last week. This actually looks a lot like what I had up here last week, and he was the good portion of my mixed results last week. So last week he finished 16th. I had him ranked 16th, and the ECR on him was I think 20th or 22nd. It was 1 spot different here. Going up against Buffalo, so similar situation to last week against Kansas City. Historically, in recent history, a better defense here with Buffalo, but They're also pretty banged up at this point and haven't been the same defense. So just once again, I see a path to success. Even if a lot of it comes from the ground, there is a chance that as they get close to the end zone, Jacoby Brissett could come through with the touchdowns at the very least. I'm moderately, not opposed to starting Jacoby Brissett this week over some people. Then Kirk Cousins, I had a hard time finding a second guy here. I have ranked 8th. The ECR on him is 10, so I have him 2 spots higher than the ECR going up against Dallas. And really, the main reason I wanted to point this out, he almost could have been a stock, is that he is only being started in 39% of the leagues. I know Dallas is a good defense, but they should be able to help offset that pass rush, similar to how the Green Bay Packers did. And they just start with that ground attack, which should open things up in the air attack, and keep Kirk Cousins a little bit more comfortable in that pocket. On top of that, it could be, a high-scoring, back-and-forth type of game could turn into the third, fourth quarter. Then as far as the stocks go last week, I did good, so hopefully I can do good for you again. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be my first pick, who I have ranked 12th/13th, 1 spot behind Kyler Murray if Kyler Murray starts, but very, very close. I actually have them both, and I don't know, I guess it's a good thing because now it doesn't matter for Monday night. But between the two, I don't know who to start. The ECR on him is 12 going up against Arizona. There are some matchup reasons to be pretty excited about the passing attack here for San Francisco. It just kind of matches good with the weaknesses of Arizona and the strengths of San Francisco's passing attack. So this could be the type of game where Jimmy Garoppolo actually has quite a few yards as well, and they can get into the end zone a couple of times. Definitely could be a good game for him. But one thing about Jimmy Garoppolo is he has such a nice floor because that offense kind of does what it does every week to some extent. And so you have to appreciate not being too afraid of ending with 10, 8 points, 12 points. He almost never does that to you. My other stock option here is going to be Marcus Mariota going up against Chicago. I have him ranked 14th/15th. ECR similar. And it really comes down to this matchup where I do think that these teams are going to run on each other a lot. This also could be a high-scoring game in part because of that, and these defenses are both not great at this point in the season. So, once again, could be quite a few touchdowns, and you hope that Marcus Mariota gets in on a couple of those and has a couple of deep throws off of the play action against Chicago's defense, those types of things. Just one of those, another high floor option here for Marcus Mariota in a week where you expect him to at least get to that floor and be a pretty safe pick. Now let's move on to the scraps. And last week I nearly nailed it, so I did really good with my quarterbacks last week. Actually, I did really good on a whole last week. Pretty proud of my past 2 weeks' performance here. So anyways, on to these scraps here. I have Joe Burrow ranked at 9th, ECR on him is 6th. You can see I had a bit of a hard time finding scrap options too this week. I'm largely in agreement with the experts, more so than most weeks actually at quarterback. So going up against Pittsburgh, just have some concerns. Go check out my rankings to see if there's somebody that you have available to you that I have ranked higher than Joe Burrow. If you don't feel super confident in that, just as a reminder, this Pittsburgh defense is not what it was 4 weeks ago. They do have TJ Watt back, so it is, and they performed like they had TJ Watt the first week that he had back last week. So with a small sample size, it appears like they're an improved defense as of late. Then Taylor Heineke only being started in 14% of the leagues, and I shouldn't say only. I think that's too high. So I have him ranked 19th. ECR on him is 16th. Houston going up against Houston this week. They're a very limiting defense. I do expect a few big plays from this passing attack, especially with Derek Stingley Jr. being out for Houston. But largely I expect them to rush the ball a lot this game. And so doesn't leave a lot of meat on the bone for Taylor Heineke. Puts him in a similar situation to like a Jacoby Brissett. But, I have him ranked differently. Then, I just have different expectations. I'm a little less bold on Taylor Heineke. That's all. So, to your 14% of folks, go ahead, check out my rankings, see if there isn't somebody that's better out there for you. But, you could do worse. Now on to some DFS news here. Last week I did good. I don't know why I called it news. And Jared Goff is going to be my DFS play this week. I do want to point out, Andy Dalton was looking kind of good with how cheap he was. Obviously not good enough that I'm going to make him my official pick here, but Jared Goff, very cheap for his upside this week. So I like it. Let's move on to the running backs. And for these steals, I did good last week. This week, I hope to continue that with Ezekiel Elliott, who I've ranked 25th. The ECR on him is 37th. This is another gimme in a sense. We don't know exactly where the experts would rank him. Probably higher than this, to be perfectly honest. But just a reminder to Ezekiel Elliott owners that this is not a bad week to have play Ezekiel Elliott if he is playing. And he's, I think, going to end up playing this week, going up against Minnesota. So he is a fine start. Not as good as I don't think I'm alone, at least for this week, in thinking that Tony Pollard's the better option, though. So if you're thinking, oh, wherever Tony Pollard's ranked, that's where Ezekiel Elliott will be ranked, that's not the case. He'll be ranked behind, I guarantee you. He'll be ranked behind Pollard at the end of the day if he gets designated to play this week. Then on to James Robinson, who I have ranked 30th. The ECR on him is 36, so I have him 6 spots behind the ECR going up against New England. He had, I think we've all forgotten, how much usage he actually had in his first game there with the Jets. So it was quite a bit, and it was like more than Michael. See, I've already forgotten the other running back's name because James Robinson did so good. Full PPR, Michael Carter, probably a higher option than James Robinson. Non-PPR, James Robinson's a better option. Here in half PPR, I'm ranked 30th, and I think he's a fine play if you're in a pinch and you need his help. Now let's move on to the stock options, where I did good last week. And this week, we're going to hope to continue that with Ramondre Stevenson, who I've ranked 11th. ECR on him is 12th. So we're in agreement that he is a must start. Only 69% of leagues are starting him. Giggity. That's a little bit low here going up against the New York Jets. They're great against the pass. They're pretty good all around as a defense. But Ramondre Stevenson, get into your lineup. You should be starting him. He should be started in more than 70% of leagues. Brian Robinson only being started in 34% of leagues. I have him 23rd. The ECR on him is 24th. And I guarantee you the experts feel the same way as me. And we want to put him even higher. But the production that he's had, it's hard to justify putting him higher than right around this area. But I think a lot of us are expecting him to do better against Houston. Like the worst rushing defense that there is. Get Brian Robinson into your freaking lineup. Try as hard as you can to fit him in there. I feel blessed that this is the week that I have to use him. So he should be a good play this week. There's a definite opportunity for 2 touchdowns over 100 yards all on the table this week for B-Rob. Now let's move on to the scraps, where last week I did better than good. What a good run here on the running backs. This week I'll probably do fine. I don't feel too uncomfortable with these. So Kareem Hunt, I have ranked 37th. ECR on him is 32nd. So it's not like either one of us are that high, but he's still being started in 25% of leagues. And I'm just here to tell you, like even more so than the experts, I really wouldn't recommend playing Kareem Hunt. The amount of usage that he's had has been really low. He's going up against Buffalo, and they've really been a bit of a rush funnel to some extent, and that's not really going to be Kareem Hunt's gig. That's Nick Chubb's play there. This is a week where I think Cleveland's going to be able to keep this game in check, and I'm even when they've been in a negative game script, Kareem Hunt really hasn't gotten a whole lot more opportunities. He's just gotten like his 5 opportunities every game. So there's some other options out there. Go check out my rankings to see who I like more. Then for Miles Sanders, this looks a lot like last week. So I have Miles Sanders ranked as 17th. ECR on him is 15th. Not a crazy big difference going up against Indianapolis. It's just a very mellow week for Miles Sanders. So like this is where, I have Brian Robinson ranked behind Miles Sanders because it's safer to recommend Miles Sanders over Brian Robinson. But honestly, I would think about it. If you want upside. If you want a guaranteed 8-ish points, Miles Sanders is pretty good for that. He gets you 80 rushing yards most games. But it's not a game. There's not the same ceiling as Brian Robinson, and this week, I think their floors are probably pretty similar. Now let's move on to my DFS value play. And last week I did good. And this week, I think I'll be able to follow up on that with my main pick here. So I'm going to be Elijah Mitchell at 5,000. These are guys who I wanted to get into here because there was more steals than anything that I wanted to bring up. Elijah Mitchell, I think, is a fine play this week. I do think that split in San Francisco is a real thing going forward. It's not a bad offense to have to rely on a running back with, even if it's the second running back there. And at that price, you got to buy. Then Jerick McKinnon only costs $500 more. I actually like Elijah Mitchell more than Jerick McKinnon, but Jerick McKinnon also a fine play if you don't believe in Elijah Mitchell, don't like that, whatever the case. Jerick McKinnon should have a good week this week. I expect things to work out well for him. Now let's move on to the wide receivers, who I would have Christian Watson here as a steal if that wasn't a Thursday night game, so that sucks that I can't give you that one. It is what it is. So let's last week with the steals, I had mixed results. This week, gonna try to do better. We'll see. So I have Keenan Allen here. That is a Sunday night game, so don't forget with that injury. That's just why his ECR is 66. This is why I'm 45 spots higher than the ECR at 21. That's where I have him ranked right now, expecting him to play. I can't remember who it was. I'm just above somebody. Just behind Jacoby Myers, we know that. So I have a certain amount of confidence in Keenan Allen, obviously, if he plays this week, and that comes a lot bit down to this matchup. Going against Kansas City should be a lot of scoring opportunities in that game, so I like it a lot, and I find it hard to pass on Keenan Allen. I am not forcing him into my lineup, but I'm happy to put him in there if I have some less than awesome options, which is very possible this week at wide receiver. Then my other steal is Darius Slayton, and he's being started in 10% of leagues. I have him ranked 28th. The ECR on him is 34. I think that's just a little bit low there at 10% going up against Detroit. That has a lot to do with it because the production for Darius Slayton so far has been a little bit not lucky, but shaky. So maybe lucky to some extent, but it's happened. So you can't take that away from him because honestly, I mean, you look at all the plays that you could say should or should not have happened every single week, and things would just look so different based on what you think should or should not have happened. And in the end, what matters is what did happen. And this is a really good matchup going up against Detroit. So really like that. Darius Slayton, I think a pretty darn solid option this week, especially if Wandale is a little bit gimpy this game or something. Now let's move on to these stock options. And last week I had mixed results. This week I hope to do better than mixed. I'm going to give you Garrett Wilson here at who I have ranked 27th, the ECR on him is 23rd. That's a larger difference than I usually have here. But only being started in 30% of leagues, really think he's a good option this week. I don't have him ranked. I couldn't find a way to get him ranked higher, but I like him quite a bit. I actually moved him ahead of Darius Slayton at the last second while making this list because I was like, I think I like Garrett Wilson more. So going up against New England, did well against him just a couple weeks ago. I like it. Now, on the other side of the ball, we have Jacoby Myers, who I have some major concerns about this week, but wide receivers be wildin' this week. It's a weird week for wide receivers. So at some point, you just have to say, I love the upside. And Jacoby Myers has really good upside when Mac Jones is playing. So 36% of leagues are starting him. I have him ranked 20th. ECR on him is 21. Obviously, most of the time, players who are, around that rank have higher percentage than 36% starting them. So I'm here to say, put your Jacoby Myers out there with confidence. Going up against the New York Jets, that does scare me a little bit, but he's got a really, really high upside. So if that's what you're looking for, definitely get Jacoby Myers in there. If you need somebody a little bit safer, wouldn't be opposed to even a Garrett Wilson on the other side of the ball. Now let's move on to these scraps, who this was easy for me. So I have DJ Moore ranked 36th. I might be a little low on where I have these guys. Maybe not. I don't know. So the ECR on him is 20th. I have him 16 spots behind the ECR going up against Baltimore, which I don't think is as good of a matchup as it was earlier this year. By the way, last week I had mixed results with these scraps. So we got Sam freaking, that's not his name, Baker Mayfield back in at quarterback, and it just did not work earlier this season. I would want to see that before getting myself 3.2 points from DJ Moore this week if I have some other options. So I'm really strongly advising to not force DJ Moore into your lineup if you have some other viable options. Now on to Michael Pittman, who I've ranked at 32nd. The ECR on him is 18, and I feel pretty similar on these two. That 4-spot ranking, it is what it is. But going up against Philadelphia, they've done really good against the primary receivers of other teams. Not a matchup that I want to mess with. A guy who hasn't really panned out that well this season, especially when Matt Ryan's at quarterback. It's been low ADOT. There's just not much of a ceiling yet. I hope and think that as this team, as Jonathan Taylor gets his rushing attack going, that could open things up in the play action game and make Michael Pittman into a Jacoby Myers, a Darius Slayton even as of late, but one of those guys who at least has like that 30-point ceiling for a crazy week some weeks, but on the bad weeks it sucks. At least give me that. That would be great. I'd like that better than what he is now. Last week, for the DFS value play for the wide receivers, I did terrible, Chuck. Part of that was Samori Toure, who I had talked about a little bit last week, and I don't know what happened last Friday, but I think that I forgot that Christian Watson was playing temporarily, because I did have him ranked, so I knew he was playing. I expected him to play from the beginning of the week, but the at some point I reverted back to like when he got injured in the game, and we thought that he had a concussion, and I wasn't sure if he was playing. I don't know. My brain totally forgot at least the fact that one of Christian Watson or Sammy Watkins was playing at the very least. Like, I thought Samori Toure was our wide receiver too, it feels like. So I had him in here. I touted his name a little bit, and I would have been suggesting Christian Watson, no doubt, last week. He's a guy I drafted. He's a guy I love. We all know this by now, right? Well, if you're new, you don't know that, but just wanted to bring that up. But I picked, I think Justin Watson was also in here last week, and that wasn't a mistake. I just didn't think that Kadarius Toney was going to be ahead of him in the pecking order for up next. But this week, with two guys out, it looks like Justin Watson should get on the field quite a bit. He did last week once Juju, I think, went down. Then he had a lot of snaps from that point forward. And he is super, super cheap this week, so high upside type guy being on that offense, especially going up against the Chargers, especially if that offense is strong too. Very high upside. Then MVS is also cheap this week, and once again, probably higher upside than Justin Watson. Obviously, he costs a little bit more, but he was really cheap. But Darnell Mooney is my DFS value play of the week for the wide receiver position. Just a reminder on these, I'm pretty much looking for the absolute cheapest that I can find that has a at least somewhat trustworthy ceiling. Although last week, I just chose three guys who we were throwing paint at the wall, and I think that was pretty obvious last week. But this week, I think spending up just a tiny bit into Darnell Mooney to find some semblance of confidence and upside. And he had a really high upside. So I like Darnell Mooney this week for the price. And to finish that off, I have Elijah Mitchell as my number one DFS play for the running back position. For the quarterbacks, I have Jared Goff as my DFS value play. For the tight end, I have Trey McBride. And that's one where the confidence level is not so high, but it's a solid ceiling. If it comes through, hopefully you were able to spend that money elsewhere too. And it works out well for you. So, good luck with everything. Your lineups this week. Come and visit me 1 hour before kickoff. I love you. Bye.